This is Pam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with our second interview with Aurora Winter, best-selling author. And we're going to talk about your new book, The Secret Multiverse Academy. And we've got the link there, Magic Mystery and the Multiverse.com,
Awesome.
for your Kickstarter. And we have talked before. We're going to kind of jump into the podcast, but we do, for those of you who have not been introduced to Aurora Winter, maybe you can kind of give a brief bio background, like
Sure.
your elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch. Okay, great. Well, I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm a former TV writer producer. I'm an award-winning author, and my passion is to help other people spark that creativity. And I do that by helping people with their nonfiction books and with my new fantasy series for young adults, which started with this book, Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse, which won the Reader's Choice Award, Best Book for Teens. It won the American Fiction Award and several other awards. And the brand new second book that's coming out on Kickstarter right now. This book is not available anywhere else except on Kickstarter. It'll be released in September. You can see the book is already written, but it's not right now being professionally edited. And on Kickstarter, people can have the chance to have their name added to the dedication or the acknowledgements or name a character. And so I'm super excited about sharing that with you and your audience today.
That's awesome. So I want to make sure, like, I think the link I have, is that the right link?
That's the right link. So Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse.com redirects to Kickstarter because their link is so darn long. And after the Kickstarter is done, that will redirect back to my webpage to tell you about the fantasy series.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I want to make that go, do I get the right one?
Hey, you're absolutely got the right one. So it's kind of like Harry Potter meets Doctor Who, except instead of having a male lead, it's got a feisty young teenage girl as the lead. So I think this is going to really appeal to people who enjoyed Harry Potter or Doctor Who, or who liked Shadow and Bone, or who enjoyed The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, or those kinds of fantasy books. It is aimed at ages 12 and up. So I think all adults would enjoy reading it, but it's not a book for 6-year-olds. It's far beyond their reading capacity. And it's fun, fast-paced, action-oriented. So if you like that kind of thing where it's a page turner, I think you'll really enjoy it. BBC's actually expressed interest in turning it into a TV series. So keep you posted on that. That would be awesome. Yeah.
I do love my BBC. I do like, I was a young kid. I used to on PBS. They used to have the old Doctor Who's.
Yeah.
And the Doctor Who, the one, my favorite is the one with the rainbow, what was it? Is I think the famous one from the 70s is the one I was into.
Okay, I think they're all worth watching.
Yeah, they go back to the black and white ones too. I'm
David Tennant is kind of my favorite.
Oh, you like David?
He's amazing. Well, he also is in the series Good Omens, which was written by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, which is a great book. But they've turned it into kind of a fun episode. But there's all these. It's always a boy or a man who's the lead. I'm like, no, it's got to be a girl for once.
Star Trek, like Star Wars, like Luke Skywalker, Captain Kirk's of the world. It's always when they go and they have like a female captain. It's like, oh no, that's not Kirk. It's like, well, it can't all be Kirk all the time.
Well, that's right. So I wanted it to be a feisty girl. I mean, she's far from perfect, but at least she's the protagonist of the story. She's leading the charge. I don't know if you watched The Golden Compass or read any of those books. Lyra, I guess she's leading the charge. So Anna is our heroine in Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse is the first book in the Secret Multiverse. That's right. She's very zesty. She's zesty.
That's like a Marvel Comics name,
Exactly.
Exactly. Like these catchy names.
So she's a lot of fun. She's impulsive. She's a bit reckless. She's a bit of a rule breaker, but her heart's in the right place and she wants to do the right thing. She wants to make a difference. And who knows, she might even be the chosen one who is going to rescue the multiverse from the evil tyrants. So you'll have to read the book to find out about that.
You got a lot of interesting characters and kind of reading in kind of like a synopsis. Like there's like enigmatic vampire, like a mute elf.
Yeah.
a dwarf prince, and you probably some many others, and then this Crimson Censor.
Yes.
So that's an interesting name too. It's kind of reminds me of the Marvel comic kind of names, but
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was inspired a little bit by the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, people who've read a lot of books when they read Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse or the Secret Multiverse Academy will see some homages to my favorite authors. So one of the homages is at the very beginning when Anna and Zachary, her brother, kind of accidentally land in the multiverse. They have a sort of like Wizard of Oz experience, and they get in this vehicle, and it lands on the evil Emerald Censor, who's like the equivalent of the Wicked Witch. And of course, this earns them instant friends and instant enemies.
because like there was that a big violation to actually even touch that. Because you know some cultures, like as soon as you touch the forbidden zone, like you might not have known you were in the forbidden zone, but they assume that you should have known, and then you have to pay regardless of whether you knew the rule or not. You have to pay.
Yeah. So yeah, just running over the Emerald Censor, who apparently dies, but you can't really kill evil creatures. They always regenerate later to come back and haunt you. So that earns Anna and her brother instant friends, because she makes friends with the talking dog, and several other characters are like, yay, you saved us from the Wicked Witch character. But it also earns her instant enemies with the Crimson Censor. And there's 4 censors in all. The Crimson Censor being hot on her case to eliminate her as quickly as possible.
So in this kind of like zone that you went to, this other universe, is it a parallel universe, a totally different universe, opposite of where they were?
Oh, I love that you asked this question. It's a portal fantasy, or it's urban fantasy, if you like. It's contemporary fantasy. So they leave Earth like 2024 or whatever contemporary time is when they shoot the BBC series. But then they go to it's not like Earth, only slightly different. It's quite a bit different. So it is it's like another planet, so to speak. So there are several. It's not Earth 2.
Or Earth 616.
Yeah, right. And then there's portals, so they can go between worlds with a great deal of difficulty if they have a portal key and they find the right portal and they get there at the right time. So there's a total of 4 different worlds. There's Earth. There's Spellbound, which is the most magical place, where there's, dragons and elves and pixies. And then there's the middling magic place, which is called Telesora, which is sort of Earth-esque. And then there's the future world, which is called Avenir, which is a toxic wasteland, because the super advanced human beings, or almost human beings types, have destroyed their planet by nuclear war or something similar akin to that. So that's eliminated all of the future population except for a very minor royal class that was underneath a biosphere. Wow. So the ones that were under the biosphere, which this is a bit of a spoiler, but Crimson Censor is actually from that planet. So she has decided to steal all the oxygen from the main planet, Telesora, because she needs a world worth of oxygen to restore her planet. Needless to say, if you take all the oxygen from a world, everything living dies.
Yeah, you kill that planet to make your planet.
Exactly. So that is what Anna and her friends have got to stop. And that's a very big quest, to say the least, an almost impossible task. But Anna has got the benefit of these wonderful magical cuffs. So they're like sort of Wonder Woman cuffs, imagine the big. So when she ran over the Emerald Censor and the Emerald Censor volatilized or disappeared, that her emerald cuffs, which were magical and powerful, got left behind. And Anna said, "Oh, these look pretty." She put them on, and they clasped onto her, and they show up very. She doesn't really know how to use them, but every now and again they do something pretty amazing, and she's learning how to use them. So she has the benefit of those magic cuffs to try to overcome the Crimson Censor, who's super powerful. She has some good friends that she's just recently met. She's got a talking dog. His name is Vito. She's the only one who can talk to him. So, in fact, I gave Vito a bigger role because everybody who read the book was like, "Oh, we love Vito. Can we have more of him?" So we added him. And then she's got these other characters that when she goes to the magic school, which is called the Secret Multiverse Academy, she meets these, she meets these interesting characters from the dwarf prince. You were mentioning a dwarf prince. He's very interesting because he's 6'4" and about 220 pounds. And Anna's like, "What? How can you be a dwarf?"
Well, yeah, what do non-dwarfs look like?
Exactly. So, but he is totally in the dwarf mindset because he was a human being who got adopted by the king and queen of the underground, the lord, the king of the dwarf world, which is spellbound. So he's very dwarf-like in his attitude, and talks about you humans. It's like, "Well, you're a human." "No, I'm not. I'm a dwarf." Anyway, and then Anna's roommates in the little cottage there's a girl who's very shy. Her name is Ellipsis. That's a joke, like ellipsis. Like she always starts every sentence with and Anna goes, "Can't you start a sentence without?" So she's a very shy character. And then there's another character. Her name is Gabby, ironically. And Gabby's like beautiful. She's stunning. She's half human and half high elf or fae. So she's absolutely stunning, except she has a sour expression as if she just sucked on a lemon. She's like bitter and she's always crossed. She's got her arms crossed. But she has her reasons because the nasty, evil people, the censors, the thought police, so to speak, chopped out her tongue. So she's not able to speak, but she manages to get around that by communicating through huffs and glares and also through tarot cards. She communicates through tarot cards.
That's cool. I mean,
that's so cool, right?
So I like the some of the premises, like even with your character, the main character, Anna Zest, having like a power that you don't understand, and you have to kind of, sometimes it might be a happy accident that something happens, and you're trying to understand, well, how do I do that again? That's kind of, well, in fantasy, that's kind of a known way of doing things. I've seen this, in all kinds of fantasy books, science fiction books, comic books.
Yeah.
All kinds of Dungeons and Dragons characters. But people, this idea, because it's more interesting than, a kind of known power. Like if you have a known power, like Superman, he can wake out the laser eyes and he can fly, he can do this. And he has all this strength. And maybe it's like, well, how much strength does he have?
Yeah.
But like, we have unknown powers, like, well, there's a lot of room.
Exactly.
To the point where you could be like, global level power, like, or beyond your solar system level power. Like you can get to be like, the Dark Phoenix, like in Marvel, like Marvel Girl was original character. Suddenly has this power, she can destroy planets.
Wow, that's a lot of power.
She was a telepath in the 60s. By the time you get to the 90s, her character had advanced to the point where she is a phoenix. She can turn to a firebird and she can destroy planets. So like, wow.
That's great. Well, that reminds me that we do have a phoenix in the story as well. You got to have your phoenix. You got to have your basic phoenix in the fantasy story. So we have a phoenix. And I love what you said about the unexpected or untamed or unmastered power, because I think that's more like life. And I think we're all capable of far more than we think. So kind of leaning into that with Anna's character. And then her two other good friends that she meets just at the Secret Multiverse Academy when she goes to the magic school there is a boy. His name is Kelvin, and he's an inventor, and he's not very good with people or with words or emotions, but he's really great with things, and he invents all kinds of great things. One of the things he invents, he says this is going to be the ultimate weapon against the thought police. He doesn't call them the thought police. They're called censors, but just to communicate to the listeners who might not catch the word censor. And she's like, what is it? Is it like dynamite, or is it a bomb, or, what, a laser? Like, what is the ultimate weapon against the thought police? And he says, it's a printing press. She's like, what? He doesn't call it a printing press. He has a much longer name for it. is the ink stamp roller hand copying begone machine, because they're hand copying, because this is before the printing press in Telesora. Anyway, and he says, no, like a printing press is the ultimate weapon against the powers that be, because we can share the truth. We can print the truth. We can share the truth. And he has a point, right?
Yeah. Well, you can find those books, the banned books find their way in the underground.
That's right.
To the resistance, to the rebels, to the outcasts. They have these secret,
exactly.
Weapons
they have the secret.
weapons of the text. It's like you have the sacred text, you have the kind of forbidden text, magical text. The fact that you can put it into that kind of frame, people are looking for the scrolls,
exactly,
that kind of
the lost. Exactly right.
You're looking for that puzzle piece of like there's a missing page in the magical book, and it, like there's a spell and it's missing an element. You got to go find it. Who's got it? You can turn it into a lot of things.
You're the perfect reader for this book. You are exactly right on the page. So it's sort of like the pen is mightier than the sword. And the other reason why the printing press or the ink stamp hand cramping begone machine is so important is because if you're sharing information orally in this world in Telesora, you would be casting the magic spell. Like you can't tell somebody how to do a magic spell. If you tell them, you invoke it. But if you write it down, then you can share it without invoking it. So this is really important in a world that's magic. So he becomes a great friend, but he does also really like blowing things up with dynamite. So he's keen on the dynamite as well. So that is quite fun. And then her other friend is named Mystic Merriweather. And Mystic is your classic people person. She loves people. She's very chatty. She's very aware of emotions and who's connected with who, like the opposite of Kelvin, the boy, the inventor. And she comes from a long line of magically powerful witches and wizards, but her magic has yet to show up. So she is secretly very worried that maybe the magic talent has skipped over her and she'll be the first dud in her family not to have any magical skill. And that's Mystic. So we have a lot of fun with the characters.
I was looking into like there's a little note that the dwarf prince actually has claimed rights to Anna's magical cuffs.
Oh yes, I love this.
That sounds it's like cool. It's like, well, how maybe we can. I don't want to give away the store, but
I'm loving that you did the research. Yeah, so the story behind those powerful, really important magical cuffs that are really the only thing standing between Anna and the Crimson Censor who would swat her like a fly is those magical cuffs. So Anna needs to keep the magical cuffs, but they were crafted by dwarves because dwarves are, very good at crafting magical metal objects, and written in the runes in the Emerald Censor's cuffs, which Anna has now, is, upon expiration of the host, this becomes the property of the dwarves.
Oh, wow.
Because the dwarves never really sell anything. They just rent it. They might rent it for 200 years, but when you move on, it reverts to them. So the dwarf prince, who's actually 6'4", he says, "No, I'm claiming those for my father, the king of the dwarves." And Anna's like, "I don't think so." So they have
done with them yet.
I need them to survive.
Supposed to wait till I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. So his name is Rusty, the prince of dwarves, and he kind of falls for Anna. I'm maybe giving a little too much away, but he also really wants those cuffs because he's trying to be a very dutiful son. Yeah, some cool tension.
That's all. This seems like I love fantasy stories. I've been kind of into, science fiction, fantasy, Tolkien, Roddenberry.
Yeah.
Going back, to to the Odyssey and the Iliad.
Oh, fabulous! And
go back, and I always try to go back to that, or even like William Blake, and his kind of epic poems. There are these big stories. They're on these etchings. He thought they were so important. He etched them.
Yeah, that's commitment.
So it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, there must be important. He's got this whole metal plate etched out with this visual of the songs of innocence and experience. It's like, oh,
Wow.
that's important. But yeah, I think in terms of like the idea that you're able to like bring this from a book to another medium, like getting it onto like the streaming services potentially, or BBC. It seems like BBC would be like, I don't know, as a musician, we've always been kind of, we see that people will go to England. Like Hendrix went to England.
Right.
He was playing here in the 60s. He wasn't really kicking it. As soon as he went to England, then he did kick it. So is there
Ah.
more opportunity like going to the BBC than there is
He
within like the US market?
I don't know. I guess I'm a BBC fan, or I like things done by the Brits. They don't usually do as many episodes in a series as American or Canadian broadcasters would typically do, or North American. But I don't know. I just really like
Their
their
approach.
flavor, their
Yeah, their
approach. Yeah, they're
aesthetic.
more maybe more that dry, witty humor.
Yeah,
You
there's
know?
something about watching, Luther. Like I watch, like, when I watch Luther, I watch any of these like British shows. It's just like this, I don't know. It's kind of like when I used to listen to Dave Davies from the Kinks.
Yeah,
There's this British aesthetic to
yeah,
Ray Davies' writing that you
yeah.
can see in a lot of British stuff. I was always kind of drawn to, a lot of British, like the Who and
Exactly.
Zeppelin, the
And
Kinks,
when I
the
look
Animals.
at the fantasy books that I've enjoyed, a lot of them are by British authors. C.S. Lewis with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the Narnia series, and The Hobbit. Like there's so many great British authors. Not to diss it, authors from anywhere else, but in addition to the Dwarf Prince, who both has reasons to fight with Anna and also has a bit of a heartthrob for her, there's another character who is Hunter. So while the dwarf prince, Rusty, is very dutiful and he's a rule follower, the other guy, Hunter, is much more of the rebel. He's not a rule follower, he's a rule breaker. And he
Mhm.
also has, I can't give too much away because that would be a big spoiler, but he has reason both to be fond of Anna and also to want to trip her up and sabotage her. So you'll have to read The Secret Multiverse Academy to find out what happens between that little forbidden love triangle, because his big secret is he's a vampire. Well, he's got more than that as a secret, but he's trouble, but very
Yeah, the
handsome,
vampire.
movie star handsome, as vampires are. And if people want to read the whole book, they can grab it on Kickstarter. If you go to Kickstarter and then search my name, Aurora Winter, or if you go as you've kindly got there, go to Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse.com. That will redirect to Kickstarter. And Kickstarter is only on for a few more days. So if you're interested, you can check it out and see
Is
what's
that
over there.
is that opportunity to name a character still open, or is that closed
Yes,
out?
you can name a character. So there's different reward tiers on Kickstarter, from ebook to softcover book to hardcover book, to get a couple of hardcover books, to teacher's pick, to name a character. So, and there's even also, we have a bit of merchandise. We have some notebooks with the covers on them, and we've got a magnet with a cute little dog. We're just in the process of setting up a whole Shopify store, actually, on which will eventually be at aurorawinter.com/store. Haven't got it quite live yet, but it was so much fun making the images for all the characters. Like, oh, we should offer this to people.
Yeah, because the Shopify, that's how we ended up, yeah, doing this T-shirt. And well, it's not, it's like a sweater, shirt, hoodie. But a
Yeah,
lot of times in merchandising is the real core to a
yeah,
lot of efforts today. Because musicians, will make more money from our hoodie
yeah.
or our poster than we make from the stream of our song.
That's
Unless
crazy.
you buy it on vinyl, then we'll make money. But like if
Yeah,
you stream it, we don't hardly make any money at
yeah.
all.
Make a
But
penny.
if you
Yeah.
actually, so if you somebody like, well, if you have the ebook sales, I don't know how they track that compared to like streams. Um, But is it tracked? It might be similar to the way the pay structure is for streaming. I'm not
I
sure how
think
that
it's
works.
very similar to the music business. In fact, the publishing industry seems to lag just behind the music business, a couple of years. But authors get paid so little for an ebook that people read for free if they've got Kindle Unlimited. Like an
Mhm.
author will get at most $1, usually just pennies, for a whole book that they may have spent 4 years writing, which
Yeah,
is kind of crazy. So
it's
part
so
of
crazy. Yeah.
part of solving that equation and adding more value is a series of books. So Magic Mystery and the Multiverse is going to be a trilogy very soon. I'm writing the third book right now, and it'll come out later this year. But also, a lot of people like merch. Like they fall in love with the characters. They want a
Yeah,
T-shirt. They
I
want
want
a
a plush
hoodie. They
toy.
want a
Yeah,
cup. They want a
especially like
magnet.
a dog, your dog character, that could kinda I don't know if you thought about, like, kids love these plush toys or, like, like teddy bear type of things. So if you had your dog character as, like, that something like that, people kind of laugh it
That's a
off.
good idea. We haven't got as far as the plushies, but thank you. Actually, the whole reason I have merch is I want to thank a shout out to a podcaster, Sasha Black, who's got the Rebel Author podcast. She interviewed me in February, and I
Mhm.
told her I was about to do a Kickstarter. She's like, "You got to have merch," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to merchandise." I was all like, "Oh, shipping and receiving, and I got a warehouse."
Yeah, yeah.
And but you don't have to
You
nowadays.
can
You
do it
can
on demand. They you get
exactly.
somebody that, that will create, like, your character as a plushie, or they'll create the shirt like this,
Yeah.
or
Well,
poster,
my
or
son is a
hat.
graphic artist, so he created a bunch of art, and then we have now the print on demand. So the Shopify store will be open soon. AuroraWinter.com/store.
That's awesome. Yeah, my daughter
Or
did my logos, so my
oh yeah,
logos are all
can you oh yeah, there we go. Oh, that's good. I like it. How many products do you sell?
well,
The
I'm
one?
not selling anything right now. I took my store down because it was kinda like, originally put my store up when I was doing these, I used to call these, peg bedroom producer festivals, where I would actually take a bunch of artists that I had, like, musicians that I had interviewed over a year, and
Yeah.
we do a 3-day festival. We have, like, 20 bands play over 3 days.
Oh, that sounds
And
fun.
during that time, we sold this shirt, and we sold, like, a t-shirt version, a hat, and some cups and posters. It was
Yeah.
all based on, and I did that festival, like, in 2020 and in 2021, but I haven't done it again because
Mhm.
we kinda reconfigured to doing a lot of interviews. So it kinda would interfere with my interview schedules because I do so many interviews now.
That's
But,
true.
at
You're the
some point,
podcast guy.
I do wanna I am in negotiation with a small record label that's thinking
Oh,
about, like, me interviewing their whole, like, stable of artists, and then that might bring it
ooh,
back, and then bring this back at that time. Because I found there
wow.
was, like, when you're doing something like a festival and you're on that long for 3 days, then you have the opportunity in between each set to sell stuff. And I was helping, I was selling the
That's true.
band. Each band would have their own merch,
Yeah,
and then I'd have my merch. And
yeah,
we in between sets, we would sell the band's merch and my merch, or
that
their
makes
vinyl
sense.
albums and stuff like, so it was like a synergy that made sense, that we actually had an
Yeah,
audience that was highly likely to buy it.
exactly. They were highly likely, and they were, like, looking for something to take that experience home with them and honor and remember it. That's great. Oh, I
You
hope you do that again. That sounds like it was a lot of fun. And I love the idea of you, being, like, the go-to podcast host who interviews a whole, bunch of artists from one label.
Yeah, well,
That's
it's
an
an indie
interesting thing.
label. Yeah, I'm working
Yeah,
on
I
it. I
like
mean,
it.
yeah, I've done collectors before, like, people from certain, like, scenes,
Mhm.
and, not the necessarily on the same label, but in the kinda like a Sub Pop Seattle type scene idea. But that's the kind of my roots, which is, like, musicians. Um,
Okay.
and lately, I've gone beyond that and talked to a lot of authors, talked
Yeah.
to a lot of painters and other types of artists. But, yeah, I think merch is really big now, and, artists, we need it because, like, if it's a way to bring in a cash flow.
So I'd at least break even. And
Like,
also, it helps people remember the experience they had, whether it was the experience reading the book or listening to the concert. And yeah, it feels different when you go see somebody live.
It's like the physical
So
book. Like if you really have a physical book, like your book here,
yeah,
like when you physically have a book, there's something about the tactile experience
yeah,
versus like we have so many like online e-readers and things.
yeah.
But I find like in a lot of the arts is like I want to have a print, not a virtual print. I actually want a print of that art and I'm going to hang it in my wall. Like
Exactly. It
I
changes
want
the
the
experience when you have
yeah, I
something
want a
you can
vinyl
touch and
record so I
feel
can
and
actually touch it while I'm listening to
hold.
it.
Plus, I love underlining books. So, there's something about, I think a book gets more precious when you underline and you make notes in the margins, and it's just not the same in an ebook.
It's like when I was in college, I was like writing in all my books,
Yeah.
putting little notes and writing on the margins. And I felt like, and I don't know what the kids today using so many online tools is like, I felt like I actually retained the information when I got to the test or got to the blue book because I had been doing that.
Yeah. It
I
makes
thought
a
I
difference.
actually retained that knowledge versus like, I wonder if kids today have trouble. Like if you were doing that all on your iPad and your phone, did you actually retain it? Or do you find that you're not pulling it back as easy if you actually physically wrote it down?
Yeah, there's something to be said about physically engaging with something that really engages your brain and shifts it. Hey, I have a question for you. So I'm not a musician or any kind of musical expert, far from it. I'm a wordsmith. But the vampire character Hunter, who's the movie star handsome one, he is the musician in the in the
Mhm.
in the group. So right now I have him playing a guitar around the campfire at night and singing, and he's entrancing everybody. But I wonder how you would add to a scene like that with your musical expertise.
Well, yeah, if he can use a guitar is like the known like, instrument doesn't need any connection to electricity or anything, so you can immediately have that kinda singer-songwriter,
Yeah.
connection. So, you think about, like, the great, singers that have those connections, like, like folk singers. You
Uh-huh.
think like, Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, right? Like, how you can pull people into a trance. I've always talked about the idea that you get in a frequency. Like, if
Mm.
you're a musician and you're really in tune with the crowd, you're kinda in the same frequency, you vibe.
Yeah.
So if he's a vampire, he could be kind of vibing like a trance, like when he hits the right frequency on his guitar. There could be this
Ah.
idea, like Pete Townsend had this idea called a universal key, right? Like all
Okay.
over Who's Next. It was the original idea was that there was this key, and if you hit that note, all the hippies in the crowd are gonna connect and they're gonna understand and peace and love will just happen because you hit that key. But if
I
you're a
like
vampire and you wanna get
it.
to trance somebody, it's like you hit that key and then you have mind control. The
Ah.
different, like, frequencies could do different things. So if he hits
Mm.
certain chords, like E7 minor or 5th diminished, what he could hit certain chords or
I'm gonna
certain
have to add your name to the acknowledgments. I'm gonna change that scene a little bit to add
and if
that
he hit like a certain
vibe.
like a diminished fifth or something, and suddenly it's a flat or a sharp or something, he hits it and boom,
Yeah,
right? And if he hits something like dissonant, it will do like dissonant behavior. If he hits
right.
something harmonious, then it get harmonious behavior. So you
I
could kind
like
of
it.
trigger something like that. These are ideas throwing them out.
Yeah, I like them. I like them. It's good. It's good brainstorming. Well, I think that there really is a truth to that. That a musician can cast a spell on the audience and get us all on the same key and the same frequency. So when I'm writing a fantasy, I can cast spells even, more so. But you already cast spells. You already know
Yeah,
how to
like
do
the
that.
siren. Like if you think about like
Yeah,
Iliad and Odyssey, the sirens, they hit a key. And I was always like kind of mesmerized by that scene in my head
yeah,
with Odysseus and these sirens. I was like, oh, they're hitting this frequency and they got him like mesmerized. They
yeah.
got him like controlled. And like and there's a lot of, I think Eric Clapton kind of talked about it. With Cream, there's some songs about that. But
Yeah.
they talked about that Odysseus moment, and there's a Cream song that goes into that. But
Ah,
if you
and
go
he
back to
wanted he wanted to hear the sirens, but he made them tie him to the mast so that he couldn't escape, but he
yeah.
wanted to hear their song. Yeah. There's a lot to be said for that. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's a
I'll
lot
see
to
if I can add another book that'll explore a planet that's got sirens on it. I only have vampires, elves, dragons,
But the
hippogriffs,
vampire could have
elves.
similar effect of a siren, kind of like a Medusa, like a siren kind of
Exactly.
thing. It's the same
Exactly.
idea. You just you take the same idea and it shows up in multiple places. Like a Medusa,
Exactly.
sirens, these
It's a,
ideas, vampires, like it all can put people into trances, so you
it's
can same idea, just
it's a
done
theme.
execute different ways.
Exactly right. It's exactly right. So the other thing people often ask me is like, why did I write these books? Like, why did I shift from writing nonfiction? Like you were just holding up one of my books, Turn Words into Wealth. And that is my main business. I'm the founder of a company called Same Page Publishing. And
Mhm.
we're dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and experts and thought leaders launch to the next level as thought leaders by creating award-winning best-selling books that make a difference. But the reason I decided to write fantasy is because I always wanted to, after I was 9 years old and I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I always wanted to write a series a little bit like C.S. Lewis. And so it's really fun for me, but also challenging. And the other reason is I think that as entrepreneurs or just as human beings, it's important to get outside your comfort zone and do
Yeah.
something new. Like I think it's to be alive means to be continually reinventing yourself. If you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, it becomes like Groundhog Day.
Well,
And
yeah, you
that's
kinda
not
phone it
living.
in. Well, you
Yeah.
phone it in. Like,
Yeah.
I know people that they get comfortable, right? You get comfortable, but even as a musician, they get some guys that, "I'm a blues guy, that's all I wanna do."
Yeah.
And in the blues, there's a lot, and you could say you're never done learning the blues,
Mhm.
you could approach it in multiple ways. But, like, if you say, why not cross genre? Why not
Right.
go into something like fusion? It's
Yeah.
not the blues, it's different. Like, why not do some bebop? Why not
Yeah.
do some punk? Why not do some new wave or progressive rock? Why not mix things together? And when you get people that mix, and you get like a Frank Zappa, you get a George Clinton,
Yeah.
you get a Prince, you get a David Bowie. They are
Yeah.
willing to cross genre is where all the fun is to me. It's like when you cross genre, like having the ability to write a book like this gave you the ability, like you can get it done. So
I can get it
you have
done.
the left, right brain, you actually can know you can complete a thought.
Yeah.
So then you can take it and challenge yourself. Well, I want to take that to the fantasy realm or the fiction
Exactly.
or the
But I
drama realm. And then you can get it done. You just gotta figure out, well, how do I master this? It's just I
exactly.
think trying to master something is why we're here. Is like,
Exactly. Exactly. And I like what you say about cross-pollinating. Like when you take an idea from here and an idea from there and you cross them, that's where originality happens. That's where creativity happens. But if you take two things that work and blend them, you're going to get an interesting hybrid. And at
yeah,
the very least, you're going to learn something new. So
get
that's
a
what I
lot of
love to do.
colors. It's like there's a
Yeah.
lot of colors in the music. It's like if I take different aesthetics, like that's what the whole thing about progressive rock. Progressive rock is a mixture of multiple genres. It
Yeah.
has some classical elements, has psychedelic elements, has blues rock elements. If you listen to a Yes song, in some places there's funk, some places there's classical structures, there's
Mm.
like rock, there's psychedelia, there's like multiple things going on in the same song. And then you're
Hmm.
like, wow, that there's a lot of room to grow here. Like you don't have you could and that's why Yes was able to go into like the new wave era
Uh-huh.
and they were a progressive band and they picked up new wave. And then suddenly they could do it, but well, because they're kind of masters of multiple genres, so they already kind of come into it and actually do it.
Yeah.
Where a lot of traditional rock bands didn't know what to do when new wave came, they kind of died. It's like I don't know
Kind of
what to do
done.
with that. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do with that.
But I think as human beings, like now is a period of time where a lot of people could be going, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to do, for example, with AI. Like AI is
Oh yeah.
changing so many things. So I love to inspire people to like, you can do something with no matter what the challenge is, you can do something with it. And I don't think it helps us individually or as a community to try to put the brakes on something that's inevitable. Instead, I think it's to try to make music with it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, something new's happening. How can we blend that with what we're already doing to make it better?
That's what with AI is like. My day job is I'm a software developer.
Right.
So, and I'm an old school kind of software. I work with banks and insurance companies who are very traditional.
Very.
They're very, a lot of my customers still use mainframes, still
Okay.
use COBOL 1970 IBM digital mainframes. And I'm
Okay.
like, okay. And I happen to have a skill set where I understand that. But now they're starting to move out of it. And they were not quick to jump on things. But like with this AI thing, for some reason, they're very quick to jump on it, which is
Really?
very
That's
surprising.
interesting. That is
I
surprising.
started yeah, I started taking all these certifications because a
Mhm.
lot of things in IT is like we have to go and kind of relearn our jobs all the time because
Right.
the technology shifts from mainframe to .NET to blockchain to AI. We're keep on. You have to reinvent yourself, or you get left behind, or you're
Or
stuck.
you're
Yeah,
right
you're like
back in the horse and buggy rage.
all I can do is mainframe. But what happens when all the mainframes get shut down? Then you're going to be in trouble. So
Yeah.
the idea is like you have to not, and I was kind of resistant to it because I'm like, well, this is not going to be able to do the stuff I do. But I found ways to help me.
Mhm.
I looked at it as a tool, just like with music.
It's a tool,
I
yeah.
use AI as a tool, not to write my music, but
Mhm.
maybe to help mix my music, to give me
Exactly.
choices, to give me prompts, right? So
Yeah.
if it prompts me to do something different, right? It prompts me to like, what happens if you make this sound like a Fleetwood Mac Rumors mix versus a Neil Young Crazy Horse mix?
Yeah.
And like set my recording studio to a mix that's similar to what Neil Young used on this record. That's
Mm.
where AI could go, yeah, I'm going to go through and find that aesthetic sound and actually make all the processors sound kind of like this album or sound like a
Ooh,
Tom
that's
Petty album.
useful. And
Then
then you
you
could
can,
probably try it a different way
yeah,
relatively quickly.
yeah,
But
it'll throw you like,
you're the one deciding.
I decided it'll tell me, give me 30-second samples of this
Yeah.
4-minute song, the first part with
Yeah.
these different mixes. And then I can
Ooh.
choose if I want to use them or I want to cross blend them. And
Yeah.
that's still my choice, but it gave me
Exactly.
a tool to do something that I would have had to hire some recording engineer to go try to replicate it.
Yeah.
And, and now I don't have to hire him. So, that gets him out of that job. I might never have been able to afford it. So he would have never got hired anyway.
So it never would have happened. So, do you think this metaphor is accurate? I think it's kind of like instead of being the bricklayer, you're now the architect of your song. You're
Yeah,
the master
you can
architect.
control a lot more where, like, if you weren't very good at engineering and you
Hmm.
weren't really good at production, these AI tools and modern tools allow a songwriter to suddenly have the means of like an Abbey Road studio or an Olympic studio. So
Wow.
suddenly you have the capabilities to be able to do something that you would have never been able to
You
afford.
couldn't have done it when you've been shut out
Yeah,
of.
and it goes to multiple levels. Like like a guy who wants to build a product with this kind of level of capability, suddenly in his house he could have a 3D printer with AI technology and some level of robotics and actually produce a product in his house that would normally take a factory to
Fabulous.
do. And then
Wow.
that allows an entrepreneur to exist that would have never existed. So that those are the opportunities at a,
Well,
you know,
I like how Joanna Penn puts it. She calls herself an AI assisted artisan author. But it sounds like you could call yourself an AI assisted artisan songwriter or a musician, like
yeah.
because you're still artisan. Like it's very hands on. It's very
Yeah, I'm still
decide.
playing my Moog. I'm still playing my Yamaha piano. See, there's some people that will say, "Well, I'm gonna give up my playing the keys and tell the computer to do it." I think that's the wrong way to approach it.
Yeah,
I still think as an artist, if you are a musician, you're always gonna wanna have your fingers on the fretboard or your
yeah,
fingers on the keyboard.
yeah.
It's other aspects of it because a lot of what we do is like coloring the sound.
Hmm.
That's after we played it, after we
Right.
put it down. Those are the things where I think the AI can help me. I would not want AI to write my riff, to write my melody, to write my chord arrangement. I don't want it doing that.
And
Um,
even your fingers on the keys, it changes it. It's not mechanical. It's like a little human
Yeah, the
something,
human.
something
Yeah,
extra
it's
going
like
on.
what I'm putting in is my life experience as a musician, like your life experience as a writer to
Yeah,
know how to turn a phrase. And you could ask AI to give you different aspects of that phrase, but it's like, why wouldn't you turn that phrase yourself? Because that's your secret sauce is how you do it. Like it's like a
yeah,
musician's secret sauce is how I play that chord or
yeah,
how I play that bass line or any element of the music is the choices I made in that moment is
yeah.
like the choices that a painter makes when he puts the brush down.
Exactly
That
right.
that's a human thing to me.
Well, where we're playing with, it's so interesting. Like, where do you define AI? Because I was actually filling out the Kickstarter form, and they're like, "Do you use AI?" And I'm like, "Well, how do you define AI?" Like, there's AI in Gmail now. There's AI
Yeah,
in
well, it's everywhere. I mean,
Photoshop. There's
you watch.
AI. Like, even if you use your phone and you do like speech to text, that's AI. So I'm like, well, okay. So I decided to like tell them everything that I do that could possibly be interpreted as AI. So I went on ad nauseum. But for example, one of the things that I did is I ran the manuscript through a program. It's called authors.ai. It doesn't
Mhm.
make any changes to the manuscript, but all it does is analyze it. But it gives it back to me in 2 minutes later. For me to analyze it would taken probably a week,
Yeah, yeah,
and it just tells you, what is the heartbeat of the story. So then it's very easy to see, oh, I need to tighten this up a bit, or I need to
yeah. Well,
loosen that
that's
up a
where it's
little bit.
good. That because
That's where it's good.
they, because I deal with software design. We're trying to build like data dictionaries of concepts.
Huh.
And so, I was dealing with this, kind of tedious actuarial concept of reinsurance.
Hmm.
And I'm an insurance guy, but I'd never really done reinsurance. I need to build up my knowledge.
Uh-huh.
And just doing a Google search on a reinsurance term, it wasn't giving me it was giving me like wrong information. It wasn't Google search in itself could not find
Google
the truth.
can be flawed for sure.
But the AI assisted search through ChatGPT had somehow learned on insurance libraries of industry knowledge. And so when I
Ah,
asked it an insurance term, it actually came back with a real term, examples,
yeah,
and actually like formulas that I was able to cross check and said, this is actually the correct information.
yeah,
And so this is kind of like it's the difference like when Spock on Star Trek asked the computer to assist him in his work.
uh-huh,
That's how AI can help like engineers and things. It can actually beef up something that you don't know, or it will go and run a formula for you and then compare it to what you did. And then it's kind of an assistant. So it's an assisted approach where you're doing the research, you're doing the work, but you need somebody to kind of help you with the kind of like repetitive task of trying to build up a
like an
50,000 word
intern,
document.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
an intern going and confirming the cases for a lawyer,
you
confirming the precedents,
you
confirming this data,
you'd have to double check because it can
Well,
hallucinate.
it'll give you bad
But I
information.
think people are going to use ChatGPT more than Google. From the example that you just gave, when you looked on Google, it gave all kinds of wrong information, or Google's still trying to sell you something to
Yeah,
go
it's
for
spend more
ad
time trying
links.
to sell me something rather than get me the information.
And
It's been
ChatGPT is giving you the actual information that you found useful. So that's a
Yeah,
better
it actually
search
gives you
tool.
and if you tell it like, "Hey, can you show me this in a spreadsheet? Can you show me like a
Mm,
loss triangle concept? What is
mm,
a property and casualty loss triangle metric?
yeah.
Can you show me what it looks like?" And then when you ask it, "Can you actually create a SQL line for that? Can you create a
Ah,
Python example of what that code would look like to generate that?" And it will. Google
yeah.
won't do that.
No, Google won't do that.
This is like the kind of Star Trek computer kind of data concept of, wow, it actually is there helping Spock solve the problem so they can get out of their hole in the next 15 minutes.
So, do you think of music mathematically because you've got this kind of engineering
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause
expertise?
I'm a synthesis, so all my I have I don't have acoustic pianos. I mean, I do have one, but most of my stuff are like analog or digital synthesizers, and so in the space of
Uh-huh.
synthesis is based on waveforms, which are
Mm,
kind of like geometric shapes. So you got sine waves, cosine waves, triangle waves, pulse waves. and the amplitude and the direction of these waves, or if you fold them, it create tones, and the tones could be like bell tones, bass tones, harmonics, and there's math actually involved in why these waves sound the way they do. And when I start to shift the waves with filters and envelope generators, it starts to get into like geometric math and algebraic math. But
I like it.
Has a result that's pleasing or to the ear. So you make choices based on mathematical generators. These oscillators generate tones based on. I mean, the thing is, music is already like that. It's in the timing frames, like if you're doing 3/4 or 4/4 or 3/1. The timing is mathematical. The harmonics are mathematical. Can equate to geometry and trigonometry, and so there is some math to it.
I love that.
As a mathematician, you can understand the wave, and so I can say, hey, if I play with a sine wave, I can get to a bell tone that sounds like somebody hitting a triangle, because if I know that waveform does that, that's kind of mathematical knowledge that equates to musical knowledge, and there's a synergy between them.
So here's how this resonates with my fantasy book. You might be surprised, but I also think of waveforms a lot. I think, the sound is a waveform, light is a waveform. So everything we see or we hear or we touch, everything is a waveform. So in this magical world, the wizard Snapdragon says that magic is really not that difficult. It's really, speaking things into reality, and it's the waveform of the spell that you're casting, of the intention that you have, of there's 4 steps to making magic happen, and it's just like she says, it's like resonance. So, and I thought, that's kind of fun. It goes along with how I see the world, because I think intention is very key to
the alchemy is the resonance. The alchemy is in the resonance. It's like the algorithm is the resonance.
Exactly. Yeah.
It ties together.
Yeah. So we kind of have fun with that. And it's like, like for example, the difference between water as vapor, water as liquid, or water as ice. So the wizard Snapdragon, when she's teaching about magic, she walks them through an example of that. And the water, is always in the air. We just don't notice it because it's so
you can
diffuse.
pull it out. Yeah, if you're a magician, you can pull it out and suddenly you could have ice. Or you could have steam, depending on the moment. If you're a really good wizard, you could hit somebody with a steam blast.
Exactly.
Hit them with the ice blast, hit them with the water blast, make fog so you can get away.
Yeah, so we have fun with the magic and magic mystery in the multiverse and the secret Multiverse Academy in the kind of way. And you've added value to Hunter's musical interlude. I'm going to add a couple of things there, thanks to what you said. So again, if anybody would like to grab this fun, fast-paced, award-winning fantasy series, it's on Kickstarter right now at magicmysteryandthemultiverse.com, or just go to Kickstarter and put my name in the search bar, Aurora Winter, Aurora Winter, and you should be able to find it.
That's fully clickable. Like when we're like, not right now, but when we go, if you go to our podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, because we're live there now, once we're off the air, that is clickable. So in the description of the podcast, anywhere the podcast can be seen, you'll see that the hyperlink is in the description of every episode of the podcast. So
aren't you clever?
So
you're very clever, as I would expect from an engineer / musician.
So we have our clickable URLs, and that is actually in the description of the podcast. You'll be able to click right through, go right to the Kickstarter. We do appreciate if you do click at the URLs of the guests that we're talking to, and that one will bring you to the Kickstarter, which then you can have an opportunity to name a character and check out the book, and feel good about Kickstarter. I've participated in a lot of techie Kickstarters to get techie products, because I'm a nerd, but but this is another cool thing that I hadn't thought about, like people pushing books to it. So that's cool. I've seen people do albums, but books I hadn't seen as much. So that's interesting.
Oh, well, Brandon Sanderson got the publishing community all excited about Kickstarter again after he's done multi-million-dollar Kickstarters for books. We're like, oh, I guess maybe we should start our book launch on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Oh, that's great.
But well, thank you. Appreciate being on the show again. We love to have guests repeat. We do have this. We do over time over the last couple of 6 years we've been doing a podcast. We do have repeat guests, and we do appreciate you showing up again. And you have a really cool concept here that we got into, and I'm very happy that you sent me the books that you sent me, and I'm gonna definitely try to get in on this one. So thank you very much for being on.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. You're a great host.
Have a good weekend, and I know I'll probably hear from you again on your third book because you got a trilogy. You got a trilogy, so we know when that's coming.
That's coming. All right, sounds good.
Have a good night.
Bye for now.